Welcome back, everybody. And as you can see, we're out on my range today doing a little bit of accuracy testing with another 350 Legend. And as you can see with this wind, not exactly ideal conditions for testing accuracy on some ammunition. But hey, it's real world conditions. This is a hunting rifle, so you never know what type of weather you're going to see come December deer season. So let me give you a little bit of preface to the situation that we have going on here. Guy comes to me, says, got this 350 Legend last year for deer season, right before deer season, kind of hastily sets it all up, gets it zeroed, goes deer hunting with it, and didn't really zero the thing in. So this year, wants to go out ahead of time, zero the thing up, and when he's shooting groups, he's getting two groups, kind of two different points of impact, but it's shooting groups. But the one is probably about 3 inches high and maybe a little bit to the right, but it doesn't always happen, kind of alternates a little bit more to the center, but there is that group that's higher, and he's wondering exactly why is it that this rifle is doing that. So I agree, I'm going to take this thing, shoot it, I'll see what I can do with it, see if I can get anything figured out for him, help him get this thing finalized up for deer season this year. So as you can see, I had to come inside. The wind was just messing up the audio, something fierce. So I'll probably replace some of that shooting footage instead of just listening to wind. Maybe some cool slow-mo shots of some brass flying out the ejection port or something. But let's get into talking about this rifle and what I'd found. Because of what I do for a living, I've had to help a lot of people diagnose problems with their firearms. So I've kind of come up with a little bit of a checklist on things that I kind of go over when people tell me that their gun isn't shooting well. I mean, if it's not a cycling function issue, then that's something different. We're talking about we have problems with accuracy here. So I basically come up with a few things to check. The first thing I like to look at when trying to diagnose something like this is everything tight? Caps on the rings, is the base tight? Everything is. What about forearm, muzzle brake or suppressor? He shoots this thing suppressed, but because of laws, I can't be in possession of his suppressor, so I used mine instead for this testing. There's just kind of no way around it, so that can't be the same. But he was shooting it off of a front bag and a rear bag, so really there wasn't going to be an issue with is the bipod tight or the pick rail tight? That really wasn't an issue on there. His buttstock, it isn't bad for an AR. It is what it is. It's correctly fit. Buffer tube isn't loose in any way. His upper to lower fit is all pretty good. Nothing's just obviously loose and dangling off the gun to wreck anything. Even his gas block, I checked the gas block, make sure that thing was tight, correct and everything. Next thing I took a look at was the barrel. How clean is it? How clean is the action? This thing being a 350 and the fact that he was running it suppressed, it was dirty. He had a couple hundred rounds through it, so no doubt his accuracy was degraded a little bit from that. But shooting two separate groups, a high and a low, is something different. Normally your barrel gets dirty and it just opens up. I put the bore scope down it. It was dirty, but nothing too bad. There was a bit of copper buildup in there. he had been shooting a couple different types of ammo through it as well. So I decided right there, we're just going to clean out the whole thing, start fresh, you know, basically refoul it with just the, he's going to use the 180 grain Winchesters, so we'll refoul it with those and try to do mainly, you know, that ammunition for, you know, the general purpose of this testing. So now I go to work shooting this thing, getting the barrel fouled back in, and making sure that we're reasonably close to point of aim, point of impact with these 180s. Now, the first group that you'll see here, that first one is a little bit low right. The rest of them start slowly sinking in that 10-round group and fouls in kind of nice. This is shooting it unsuppressed. Two groups unsuppressed. I throw the suppressor on, and I shoot that group right there. So not bad, but again, it's pretty windy out, so that one right there, it's pretty hard to hold still in this wind that we got going on today. So it's not looking bad. So now that I've shot some reasonable groups with it, I decide that I'm going to start changing some things. Normally, when somebody's shooting two separate groups like that, I would say that it's preloading of the stock versus not preloading the stock. On a cheap rifle with a flexible stock, you definitely tend to see that a lot when you put it on a bipod. This, he was shooting off of a regular bag up front and then a rear bag, so he really wasn't getting the full flex, but I decided to try it anyway. So I shoot 10 rounds, and this is what I get. Is this group right there. So all of them except for this one, which at this point I also put the chronograph on there, or should I say the magnetospeed on there, to make sure that our velocities are the same. This round was over 50 feet per second slower than the average, but you can see there is no real shift from preloading forward to kind of a neutral preload to pulling back. It's still grouping pretty much the same. Next up, I decided to chronograph some 150 grainers and see what they would do for a group. That guy right there, it was a misfeed and smashed that tip really bad. So it didn't surprise me that that was a flyer outside of the group. I would say that this gun probably does like the 150s being suppressed more than it does the 180s. So at this point, what could it be if we now know that how much you're preloading the gun doesn't really affect it? The chronograph numbers are looking pretty good, minus just a couple of shots that strayed away from the normal. I mean, for 350 Legend ammo, this stuff being under, you know, I think it was 16 feet per second was the wider spread for SDs, so not bad for a 350 Legend. What else would we normally think of that could be throwing this? The scope's tracking right, you know, we don't have any issues with that. I know Frank Galley has talked about this a little bit, and I have seen it before in a few other rifles, but this is definitely what I was kind of thinking to begin with when he said he was making two separate height groups. So, on this target right here, never mind these guys, that was me sighting in. This is the suppressor heights when we put that on there. This group right here, I started messing around with technique just a little bit. You see one group right here and another group right here start to kind of form when I was trying to consciously do this with that stock in the rear bag. Now this next part has to do with how your bag interfaces with this rear stock. On his rifle, he's got this style of mag pull where we just have basically a 45-degree angle down. Now, I swapped this out with the mag pull SL version here, which has a better flat, and this is why I use this stock. Let me show you the group difference in here. Now on here, shooting this group right here with that CTR versus shooting that group right there with my SL, the difference is under recoil, this thing's wanting to slip back. So every time it slips back, if you're not pinching this with your rear hand and keeping it up here, you're letting this bag slip down, and that's probably what was pitching that barrel up and throwing his groups 3 inches high. And I'm betting that he probably wasn't even using a bag like this. He was probably using more of an old school bag like this one right here, where these really aren't meant to be pinched per se to adjust them like the sniper bag or a carrying hunter bag. So every time he pulled the trigger, that thing, depending on how much forward pressure he was putting, because he was using a front bag on here, he was letting that stock dip. He was backing off of it and letting it recoil more on one group versus the other, and that's how he was changing that position from point of impact from point of aim. So when we are using a rear bag, to help avoid this, we do need to pinch in right here, and I grab a hold of the stock with my pointer finger and my thumb. I actually grab that, use my bottom 3 fingers to squeeze that bag and manipulate direction that way. But we need to pinch into this stock and make sure that when it moves, it's moving as a whole and not letting that just slack right back on that rear bag. When using a stock like this that's a little bit flatter, you still do the same thing. Pinch into that thing, hold on to it, and if it does slip, at least it's minimizing how much dipping it's doing on there compared to these harder angle stocks. That's why I use this SL. Now, at the end of the day, does it really matter? Yes and no. When sighting this in and shooting it for, accuracy, using a rear bag, then yes, it matters. Out in the field for the practical use of what this rifle is for, I'm going to say no. This is his deer hunting rifle. He is probably not going to be sitting on a bench shooting a deer, nor laying prone and probably shooting a deer. He'd probably be standing, maybe leaning up against a tree, maybe kneeling, might be able to rest the forearm on a crossing branch, something like that, a kneeling shot. But I guarantee he's not going to have any type of rear bag with him. So does that part of the technique even matter? This kind of gets to the second point. The yes part of it would be he now has the confidence to know that this rifle system with that ammunition is more than capable of taking deer. He's got that confidence, and that's a lot. You don't want to be questioning, is it the gun? Is it you? We've now eliminated that. We know that this thing will shoot groups. Now, to follow this up, the other big thing, point number 3 would be that's where training comes in. Going out, shooting, practicing, recognizing what you're doing with the gun. Even, I've been doing this for over 20 years now. I have still, in recent years, gone and sought professional training. It never hurts to have a professional watchful eye watch you run the gun. it will affirm that you're doing A, B, and C right, but it also might uncover that you've got something you're doing unconsciously and correct that X, Y, and Z and make you just that much better of a shooter. Well, hopefully you liked this video. It was a little bit impromptu. I was actually in the middle of shooting a different video and ended up having to send a gun back, get another barrel put on, and this kind of arose due to the nature of my job. Like I said, I've had to do this a handful of times, do a little bit of figuring out. When guys say, well, my gun doesn't shoot, take it out, shoot it, diagnose some stuff, see if, is it the gun, is it an element of the gun, the ammo, in this case, is it the shooter? But hopefully you learned a little something, and, let me know down below what you think in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.